Hey guys, new video today. So I'm just making an explanation video on what I meant when I said I broke down my studying over the Christmas break when I wrote my DAT last year. So I know this is super crude. I just have some text on Paint, but just bear with me. I feel like this is the best way to explain myself really quickly, and I don't want to waste anyone's time. So let's just get into it. So last time I said on Christmas break, I have 2 weeks to get 50% of my studying done. So this is what I meant. So I knew I had 2 weeks off, but probably around only 9 actual days of actually being able to study without distraction. So if I, for example, wanted to get 20 units, if there were 20 units of total of bio, and let's say 15 total units of chem, and I wanted to get 50% of each done, that would mean about 10 units, 10 units of bio and around 8 units of chem. We're rounding up, it's probably like, 7.5 if I do the math. But we're rounding up because we're not weak, we ain't soft, we're going to do some more work. Anyways, so if I divide 10 units and 8 units by 9, the amount of days I have to study, I know it comes up to about 1.1 units of bio, and I'm saying 1.5 here. Again, we're just rounding up just because it's just simpler to do 1 unit and then half of another unit instead of like 1 and then like 10% of another. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. But that's the daily goal, right? Over these 9 days, we're going to finish about 1.5 units of bio and about 1 unit of chem a day. But the end goal is to finish those 10 units and the 8 units. So you can see here that I'm trying to break up my studying in terms of days and the end goal. Just so, let's say, for example, something suddenly came up, it's a family party I forgot, or it's a break or something came up, I'm hanging out with friends, and I only get like 1 unit of bio done and then no units of chem done one day. Well, I know now that if that's my end goal is to finish 10 and 8 units of bio and chem, that I need to make up another unit, a half a unit of bio and another unit of chem the next day, right? So it's just easier. So a couple tips. I mentioned before, when deciding how much to study, again, I mentioned a little bit about flexibility as well, but if you round up the amount of work you have to do, that frees up more time in your schedule later on. So life throws a bunch of different things at you. You're studying for the DAT during the holidays, during school. It's just easier to round up the amount of work you do on a daily basis just so you can free up time later to be more flexible when things arise. So that's just one thing I found that was easier for me. Also, I mentioned this as well, the end goal is the most important. So it's really good to make a study schedule like this because you know your daily goals and know your end goals. So if you finish your units early, you have some free time. But if you don't finish for a day, you know that you need to make up what part of the previous unit that you need to do and just carry over for the next day. Also, the last tip is reward yourself. So let's say you do finish early, like take the night off. The reason that we're making this schedule is so you know the amount of work you need to do every day and so that you don't feel stressed by having the weight of the world on your shoulders. You have to go through so many units of chem, you have so much work to do. The reason we're pacing ourselves and like looking far ahead in the future, well, for this is only 2 weeks. But the reason we're doing this is so you can have time to take a couple hours off, like relax, unwind, spend some time with your family, maybe do some other things. The biggest takeaway here is that you really do want to look ahead. You really want to look ahead and see how much studying you have to do. You want to be flexible and you need to reward yourself because this isn't really an exam on how hard or how, cognitively impressive you are. It's more about how determined are you to be able to study this stuff for this extensive period of time. And that's all I got to say about this. And the next little paint video, which is a little demonstration on how I studied during the school semester. So before I get into this, I just want to say that the main takeaway here is that it's really important to weave tasks within your study breaks or your time in between classes. So for example, Monday morning here or Monday afternoon. So just to go through my schedule, you can see here that on Mondays, I have a 2-hour break in between my 2 classes. So what I would do is I would go to the gym for about 50 minutes, maybe 45, and then do an RC exam right after. And then on Tuesday, I don't have any class in the mornings. So I would wake up and do some schoolwork. Maybe I would have like a reading that I wanted to get through. And then after I would finish that one task, or maybe 2 in terms of coursework. And then I would work on bio or chem studying. And then I would have my class. On Wednesday, you can see here that I have a big gap in between classes where I can really use that time to be productive. So it's the same thing as Monday, where I would go to the gym and then squeeze in an RC exam. If I had more time, I would squeeze in some classroom notes. So I'd try to like prepare for this class I had in the afternoon. On Thursday, so I don't have any physical class, but I do have some volunteering work that's not involved in the schedule here. And also I do have an online course that's not in the schedule. But basically what I would do is I would wake up at the same time around, I think I woke up around like maybe 8:30 or 9, start studying for my school, for any coursework, maybe do a reading or two, or catch up or review a lecture or something. And then after I would finish the tasks that I had for that morning, then I would work on my bio and chem DAT studying. On Friday, you can see here that I have my mornings filled up, so I do have stuff, I have time after. And it would be much the same as Thursdays, where I would just work on schoolwork, maybe have some couple specific tasks that I need to do, and then I'd work on chem and bio after I'm done. So if you've noticed so far, I haven't really talked about anything after my school day. So my school day really ends at 3:30 at the latest. After the school day was over, I would basically work on whatever course material I had to work on that day. So I would have a couple of tasks I needed to do and then work on those. And then after my schoolwork was done, I would always work on DAT studying. But the thing is, DAT studying or school studying, but I would cut it off at 11 o'clock. So at 11, I would cut off whatever I was doing, and then I would force myself to do an hour of PAT practice. It's really, really hard to fit in PAT practice, I felt, for me, because there's always other things that I felt had priority. But the only way you're going to score better on PAT is if you practice at it. So basically, I forced myself to do this. And even with this, forcing myself to practice PAT every single night for an hour, I still only finished with the 19. And the thing is, I know that if I didn't force myself to do this, I would have finished with a lot lower. So it's really important to practice PAT early and practice it consistently. Again, I mentioned things not seen in the schedule. Club activities. So I did have a club activity, which was bi-weekly. So sometimes I would have maybe an hour meeting, and some other weeks I would have an event where it'd be maybe 2 or 3 hours, where attending the event and then helping plan it or helping promote or things like that. Again, I mentioned volunteering on Thursdays, where it's usually 2 hours, the 2 hours that are assigned on Thursdays, but sometimes you would have other events or other things you signed up for that were involved in this volunteering task. So again, it's a little bit variable. One final note is that it's important to stick with your routine, but it's also really important to be flexible. So for example, in like the week and a half that I had midterms, I basically threw this entire study schedule out. Like in between my Monday class periods, I would study for my midterms. On Tuesday, I'll study for my midterms. Wednesday, study for my midterms. So I wouldn't have the time to do an RC exam. And even after class, I wouldn't even stop at 11 to do PAT. I would just keep studying for my exams that were coming up. Knowing this, though, knowing that I had midterms coming up, I would study a lot harder for my DAT in the weeks leading up to midterm season, because I knew that I wouldn't have enough time to study for the DAT then. So again, just to review, the main takeaways is that you really want to fit in as much study time as you can in between your classes, and to be productive whenever you can, because it's times like this where even if this is just an hour here, this is like 2 hours here in terms of studying, subtract the gym time, but it's really important because that adds up over the week.